Hi, everyone. Dom Famularo here, and I am so excited today to have another great guest here for the Sabian Sabian Education Network program. I get the chance to have this live version both on Facebook and on YouTube for Sabian. The education program that Sabian has put together is exciting. It allows me to tap into the world of stepping into the lives of these young teachers that are out there doing it. And today, from upstate New York, I've got with me Bobby Angilletta. Bobby A., thanks so much for joining me.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Dom. Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to extend some gratitude to Sabian and to Joe B for asking me to be on. And it's quite an honor. Thank you.
You know, it's so great, Bobby, as I have these conversations, and you've joined on probably all of them as I have done these, and as Joe Bergamini has done them also. You've been a part of all of them. You really have shown some great dedication to wanting to learn and take in all the different information from not only the tech ones that we've had with Jim Toscano,
Yep.
and then not only the great ones that we've had with all these great artists, the Garibaldis and the Weckels and the Billy Cobhams, my gosh, Tommy Breckline, so many great. You've been there for all of them. So thanks for being a loyal supporter of the SEN program.
Well, thank you. And when SEN first started, I think it's going back 7 or 8 years ago, I actually was part of the initial group of people. And I just knew that there was something special. And that was before all the internet stuff. And it was something special there. And I just knew that this was sort of the tribe for me, being an educator and someone really passionate about drums and wanting to get that message out there to anybody who wants to listen.
It's so great. And what Sabian does so well is they do just that. They listen to the artists, they listen to the educators, they listen, they take it in, and then they act. And that really is something which is very special with a great company like Sabian. But I want to go back now. Go back to the beginning now. Here you are. You're playing in several bands, and of course now with pandemic, the band thing has been put on hold.
Right.
We're actively performing hundreds of dates a year. Mm-hmm. And you've got your teaching studio there that you've set up that you're teaching online. So I want to go back and find out, listen, in the beginning days, I always love the story. How did it begin?
Well, most people will tell you about pots and pans, especially if they're a drummer. In my household, it was literally pots and pans because both my parents were born in Italy. And they came to this country in the late 60s and early 70s. And my father, he started an Italian restaurant. So really did the whole American dream thing. Mm-hmm. And I got my work ethic from him. But I literally, when they talk about pots and pans in the house, my hands were in the pots and pans from a very, very young age. So, what really happened for me in terms of my earliest recollection of liking the drums was the Blondie record with Clem Burke on the drums and the song called Dreaming. And that song, I was probably about 3 years old when that came out, maybe 4, when it was like a new song. And my mother had the sofa with the plastic cover on it, like a lot of Italian American homes. They bought one couch and they put the plastic on and think they were gonna make it live forever, this couch. But to me, with 2 pencils, you hit the side of that chair, it sounded like a snare drum on the arm. So I was able to figure out at 3 years old. And that really was my early introduction to hearing the drum. But the person and the moment that it happened for me was Ronnie Tutt, Aloha from Hawaii. I was big into Elvis, 9 years old. I wanted to be Elvis. And then that got me into listening to the records, and I really got into that 70s era. And when I saw that Aloha from Hawaii and Ronnie Tutt with that blue Ludwig kit, blue sparkle kit, like all the way down, I was hooked. And he's still, my number one influence to this day.
Boy, Ronnie is a beautiful person. I had the chance to interview him for the Sessions panel. And at the time, a couple of years ago, he was 80. So he's up there, but the memories that he has from the Elvis days and the touring, just imagine the insanity of the roller coaster ride that must have been like to play with Elvis.
He was doing sessions too, playing with Elvis and doing sessions. I think he did Piano Man for Billy Joel.
Absolutely. In between all of that stuff, to have that kind of a career, just a wonderful, wonderful person too. And married to his wife, and Ronnie met his wife. She was one of the stewardesses on the private jet that Elvis had, scheduled.
Wow.
And he met her there and has been with her all these years. So it's a beautiful story. But Ron Tutt, another great influence that you have that you go back there. So when did you get your first drum set?
My first drum set, I was 10 years old, and the brand was called Adam drums, and it was a bass drum, a rack tom, and a snare drum. And my parents did not know how to put it together. So it was like a tom over here, and forget about the hi-hats. When I teach, when my students get a drum set, I always give them like a special hi-hat, how to put it together lesson, probably because I was traumatized early on that my parents didn't know how to put it together. But and I always tell them it's a salami sandwich. You got the felt, that's the bread, the cymbal is the salami, and you put the other bread and you put it together, and that always works.
Hey, I'm getting hungry now. Be careful.
It's always about food. So I was 10 years old, but before that, I had what was called you used to get them in the back of the Sears Christmas catalog or the JCPenney Christmas catalog, Sonics. It was like an electronic drum with 4 little pads, and I thought I was Ringo on that thing when I was 9 years old. So I used to play Ticket to Ride on there and everything, and then I got my first drum set and I beat the crap out of it, and just kind of progressed from there.
I love it. I love it. Bobby, we have people that are logging on right now, and I ask everyone that is listening live right now, when you make a comment, ask a question if you have a question, but also let me know where you're from, because I see Catherine Wall is here, and to understand the name Catherine Wall is a wonderful student of mine. She's a wonderful player. She lives in Christchurch, New Zealand. So the fact that she's here right now, it must be like 3 o'clock in the morning for her right now. And we've got people from Mexico, from California, from Kevin Lehman from Colorado. So everybody, just kind of let me know kind of where you're from so I can see where that's from and any questions you may have.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate it.
Really is great, Bobby. So now you get your drums, you're playing. Did you take any lessons locally from around the area?
I started lessons at 14 years old. So from 10 years old on, I was listening to records, playing all the time, and just had that passion and fire. But I don't need lessons. I had a lot of natural talent, and a lot of it came, sort of to me easy early on. Oh, I don't need lessons. I was one of those kids. Then around at the end of 8th grade, in high school, preparing for high school, they started asking you, what do you want to do with your life? And I already knew. I was either going to be a pizza man like my father, or I was going to be a drummer. Either way, I was working with these. And, I started gearing up towards what do I need to know to get into a music university. Yeah. I started taking piano lessons, and I found a drum teacher locally, and I joined the local musicians union. And that's when I started learning reading, rudiments, and the different styles, which to this day are the 3 core things that I teach to my students: rudiments, reading, and across the board on the different kinds of styles. Because I like to tell my students, I want you to be able to replace me or sub for me on my gig if I want to take a day off. That's what I'm preparing you to do. That's what I want you to do. So that those 3 things you need to be able to do my gig.
Boy, good for you, man. It's great advice. So you go along, you're studying. Did you work out of certain books at all, or were there specific things you were working on?
Definitely just the 26 American Standard Rudiments was a big, every day. One book that I just loved, and it's out of print now, but it's called Buddy Rich Today by a guy named Bobby Paul. Yeah. And this book really opened up my movement on the drum set and the use of rudiments, and it connected the dots for me. Plus, it was written in such a way where you can play all the exercises in a rock style and in a swing style. So this is where I started recognizing I don't want to just be a rock drummer. I don't want to just be a jazz drummer. I realized, I believe I heard Buddy Rich say it once, I just want to be a drummer. Play with the Beatles on Tuesday night, I wish, and then play with the Buddy Rich Big Band on, Friday night. Play with Metallica on Saturday night. This is the kind of mentality. I still have that mentality.
Well, that is really fantastic. So you have this here now. So other drummers that you're listening to, or other bands? I mean, Ronnie Tutt, you mentioned Ringo, the Beatles. who else was kind of entering in your life from a dramistic standpoint?
Okay, great question. At 14 years old, I came of age in the grunge era. So, Dave Grohl was a brand new drummer at that time. Dave Abruzzi's from Pearl Jam. Soundgarden, Matt Cameron. So a lot of that era was my rock influence. Really big influence on me was Don Brewer from the band Grand Funk.
How great is that, right?
Just so good, And so my first band that I was in was a band called The Herd, Heard, and we were a 3-piece power group. So we were playing Hendrix, Grand Funk, and a lot of those classic rock tunes. So I went back and started going to listen to those records like Bonham and Mitch Mitchell and Keith Moon. I still love Keith Moon. I like those frantic, crazy, in-your-face drummers. And but Louis Bellson was like the second guy that really changed my life, like Ronnie did, because my drum instructor, his name was Joe Moan. I really don't know if he's still with us here. I should check on that. But Joe Moan, he was my first drum teacher, and he gave me this VHS of Louis Bellson's "The Musical Drummer," I think it was called, and he was so cool. He had this like windbreaker on, and and he was playing all this great stuff, but he looked effortless, and it blew my mind. And that was even before I heard Buddy Rich. I always listened to Gene Krupa a lot because people would reference me as Gene Krupa because my hair was black and kind of wavy. And interesting story about that. My wife, who was my high school sweetheart, so going back almost nearly 30 years now that I've known my wife, when her grandmother first met me, they came to the house, and this drum set that's behind me, was at the house, and it's a white drum set. And she says to me, "You remind me of Gene Krupa." Now, my wife's grandmother, she was of the Gene Krupa's era. So that was quite a compliment. And that's when I said, I'm marrying this girl. True story.
It's pretty amazing when we think about the importance of going back to find out about these drummers that came before us that really are a major part of the evolution of the instrument.
Sure.
And by going back and doing that kind of research and listening to them, I mean, it's just so great to have the example of, anyone that goes to hear Louis Bellson play, and he started the whole concept with this double bass concept. Mm-hmm. And when he did this, everyone told him it's never going to last. And here we are today, still with double bass and double pedal, and still doing it. And Louis' name continues long after he has passed. So it's amazing the importance of these historical drummers, right?
Of course, and we can, continue to build off of them and remember them, which is the best legacy for them. Is us, the people that are here now. Just remembering where we came from, and this goes back to, you asked me where I started. I started in Calabria, Italy. Not me physically there, my parents. So my roots are there. And just this morning, I was emailing somebody about the possibility of a dual citizenship, because I want to know about where my roots are so that I can live my best foot here, 1 foot in the old, 1 foot in the new.
It's funny. I actually am working on my dual citizenship. I'm able to get it through my mother's side, and I'm working on it just to have that, because having that second passport, the Italian passport, allows us that when we go to Europe, you can travel throughout Europe a lot easier and have accessibility to more advantages by having a European passport. So that's something which I think is very valuable for anyone, no matter where you're from, to get involved in doing that. Let's talk about the bands now. So you get involved now, you start playing with different bands, you've got your own band, and you're starting to now get paid and become a professional. When did that transition happen where you finally realized, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, when I graduated high school fairly early. I was 17 years old. And like I mentioned before, I was in the band called The Herd, which we were gigging, from 14 to 17. I was gigging regularly and was playing honky tonks and up to 3 a.m. I couldn't drink. I couldn't do any of those things, but I was getting my stuff together, my playing together and learning how to play in a band. At 17 years old, I moved to New York City and I attended the New School Jazz program where I got to study with some really amazing people. But I only went for one semester there because I just didn't really vibe with the college scene. I wanted to play. I was ready to go. And it was a great school. I didn't have any, I had good grades there. I met a lot of cool people. But in my back of my mind, I was like, let me just get out. I've been in school for my whole life. I lived in a small town. I'm in New York City. I want to go out. So I answered a Village Voice ad, which led me to one band, which led me to working at a coffee shop, which led me to meeting the guy who plays bass in one of my bands now, called So Human. And I had a great, experience. And that was my college life, the So Human band. And, we traveled and we did it all. And we're still kind of doing it all now, but we're older now. We're middle-aged men now, still doing it. And it's fun and it's got a little different purpose. But then, more recently, and a band that I play in locally in my area, it's called The Accents. And this band has been around going on, will be 63 years now that this band has been formed in this area and has been in continuous operation, with the exception of last year. We still played in 2020, but after March, we were not playing. So I don't know yet how that's going to unfold this year, but that band, is completely different. That's a 9-piece band where it's all about supporting the singers and keeping back and keeping people on the dance floor, whereas So Human is more of a showcase for what I do as a drummer. So I always say, one band's for my bread and one band's for my head.
So you're playing music that you really enjoy at certain points, and you get the other band, you're getting paid and you're working. So, but you have to learn, I'm sure, a wide variety of songs to be able to cover both bands.
Oh, for sure. Well, in the Accents, you just have to have the skills together to be able to maybe make a quick chart, listen really well, understand form, play the different styles that are required that will keep people on the dance floor, and really listen to the singers. We have 3 lead singers in this band. I got to know when they're running out of breath. That means I'm maybe playing a little too fast, or if they're forgetting the words, maybe I'm playing a little too slow. So you got to find that happy medium. And in that band, we don't have a set list. He just calls them out and so there's no setting a click or anything like that. It's just kind of going from memory and going for feel and instinct. So it's really like driving the ship. And I always tell my students this too. I say, listen, you may not own the airplane, but if as a drummer, you're the pilot, you're the captain. It doesn't matter, who owns the airline. If you're the person in that pilot seat, you're responsible for taking it off and landing it safely for everybody that's, on board. So that's how I see my job in that band. With So Human, it's more of a creative process and all original music. I have the opportunity to be a voice in that band, meaning like literally, pick the direction of where we're going to go, what we're going to do next, and then as a writer. And that's a 3-piece, sometimes 4, depending on if the 4th member wants to be happening or not, who's actually my brother. So, that is just a creative outlet for me. And it's just history. Again, it comes back to, my life and the legacy, not specifically mine, but all that people we touch along the way.
Yeah. Well, and it's just so great that you have that level of commitment, and it really is wonderful to see. So now the pandemic hits. How has this affected and changed? The band stopped, but are you still kind of talking to the band members? Are you still kind of mapping out ideas and stuff with them?
Yeah, we get a text every week or so about maybe potentially as far as I know, there's a potential gig at the end of February. But I don't know, we've had so many of these gigs, like we're around standby and like a day before it's canceled. So I've really, to use the word that's probably overly used, pivoted, these days in 2020. And honestly, it's been a very productive and really good year for me in terms of getting things together that I didn't have the time to. I had equipment that was sitting in my garage, literally in the wrappers that it came in for 3-4 years. The pandemic forced me to have to open it up. Then I converted my whole downstairs into a teaching studio, but you know what? It became more than a teaching studio. It became my laboratory to start working out, again, new ideas. Normally when I play a gig, I just play a basic 4-piece with a couple cymbals, but I got everything up now because I'm trying things and I'm using the time to reinvent myself, basically, so that I can be better for me, then I can be better for my students, then I can be better for my bands, then I can be better for people. You know, it's just, how good do you want to be? You know, that's the mindset that I've had since 14 years old.
Listen, that's a very, very healthy mindset. That's that ability of being the constant student.
Mm-hmm.
Constant student, to be able to have the ability of being able to say, hey, listen, I just want to keep learning. And all of the great, mentors, I'm sure, in your life were like that. They would just, they just continue to grow, and that's what they passed on to you.
I can't think of one person that is at the level of success that I wish to attain that isn't still doing something to keep on sharpening themselves and sharpening that saw that will help them get to that next level. To me, to stop does not make sense. I don't stop breathing, right? Learning should be like breathing. You just keep doing it,
If you can keep doing it and learning until we eventually stop breathing, that's a pretty successful life.
I think that's when you figured it out, when you go to sleep.
So, I mean, I've enjoyed the lessons that we've done over the past several years, and it's been great to see that you, as we do our lessons, you are continuing to not only grow as a player, but also as an educator and also as a person.
Thank you.
Sometimes in our lessons, there are discussions that we have in the process, and it was through, again, you now amping up your studio, where I said, listen, you got to contact Jim Toscano.
Yeah.
Contact Toscano.
Guy.
He will set you up in the way it is. He is absolutely amazing. Not only is Jimmy an amazing, player and educator and author of a book and recording artist. I mean, he's got all that down, but he really understands technology. I call him a technologist. He really understands everything about audio technology and setting things up with interfaces, video interface. He gets all that down, and it's much easier to sit down with him and have him guide us along the way. So talk about
everything you see here. I owe, big gratitude to Jim because, I really am not a tech person. I barely change the light bulbs in my house. I mean, I'm not even joking. I'm definitely one of those people that are good at like one or two things and the rest that just fall by the wayside. But Jim's helped me out a lot. And, he's just a super kind and generous person that you call him, you send him a text, he gets right on it, and he knows how to teach it. He knows how to make it, make sense.
Yeah.
So I'm learning.
Yeah, fantastic. So just talk about like, in that process. So, and I want to get into even your lessons themselves, how you're pushing yourself, but let's stay on the studio for a second.
Sure.
The studio now, just talk about what you did. You had to shift all your students now to all online.
Yep.
So that was something which some of the students you had to probably convince to do it that way. They didn't understand if it would work.
Well, yeah, when it first started, I was at my desk, which actually I don't have anymore. I got rid of it. It was a desk with the laptop, and I thought it was going to be a short period. So it was sort of like, okay, guys, everybody knows we're sort of in a pandemic now. For the next month or two, we're going to just have lessons like this, and we're going to do a lot of pad work because I didn't know how the sound was going to work. I was just using the microphone on the computer, and I didn't want to overdo it. And I actually started out using Skype. We're going to do Skype lessons and pad work. And I said, this is actually pretty good because you got to always make sure that you find the good in it.
Yeah.
So this is pretty good, guys. We'll hone in on rudiments and some reading skills. So it might not be four-way coordination and grooves and drum set, but we still need to know this other stuff. So it started like that. 3 months of that, and I was like, okay, this is, there's only so long I can do that. So then I just started getting a little itchy, and one day I just moved. I just destroyed my downstairs. Not like with a hammer or anything, but like moved everything to the other side, forced myself to have to do something now. Now this is a giant mess. You can't even walk. I got to do something. And slowly but surely I started piecing it together, and that one piece of gear I had came through, and then more gear I acquired, and Jim came in and helped me. I'm using a Focusrite 18i20, which a lot of drummers I know are using. He helped me get that set up. I turned TVs that I had into monitors. So I got a monitor over here, a monitor behind me, cameras all over the place because I love looking at myself. And and it just kind of, cymbals started flying up everywhere. And as far as telling my students, I'm going to be honest, I didn't really give them much of a choice. I said, listen, you want to study with me? This is how it's going to be. That's it.
Really, I call that, Bobby, that's called leadership, where you guide the students along the way and you inform them what will still work out great for them. But we have to guide them along the way for them to understand that there's another opportunity in how we can learn. And it works out for them. And the students have been enjoying this, right?
It's been better from my perspective, from what I'm seeing out of my students, for how I can operate from teaching. It's been better. I can see their drum sets. I had one kid, he had the drums upside down. He didn't even know it, like the tom-toms, So I'm like, okay, the first thing we're going to do is set your drums up right, and then they're comfortable in their own home. It's just been better on a lot of different levels. Sure, I miss, the interaction of a live setting, and there's certain things that come across better live, but this is the new world we live in, so we need to figure out how to do that this way. I mean, what if the doors don't open up back the way they were a year or 2 years ago? We need to be prepared both ways. It's like I have a pair of brushes in my stick bag, and I have regular drumsticks, and I got hot rods, and I got all kinds of things. I gotta be prepared for what is reality.
The world has definitely delivered us a challenge, and either we accept that challenge or we just fade away. And I always say, I always love accepting a challenge, because what a challenge means, I'm going to rise to the challenge. And inside the word challenge, which I love, is if you accept the challenge, you must accept change. The first 3 letters of challenge and the last 3 letters of challenge is the word change. So we have to adapt to change. And once you change and you accept that challenge, we grow. And if we grow, we are able to then guide our students to grow.
Yeah.
It's really what you've done. So you work with Jim. So you set up some microphones in there and some cameras. So you kind of have multi-camera angles, and you've got a few different things that are happening, right?
Yep. I have 4 Zoom Q2Ns, one on my foot, one to the side, one above, and one straight. So if I'm looking at, I could look like this, but it's behind me. And then I use sometimes the computer's camera. So that's my 5 cameras. And I think it's an Audix DP7 mic kit, on the main parts of the drums, a couple of overheads, and then a couple of extra mics that I had so I can get the bottom of the snare, because I also am recording drum tracks for clients from here now. And that's really been really cool. I've gotten some of the best drum sounds in my entire, recording career from right here. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why would I don't even want to leave the house anymore. Once I take my dog for a walk, like I'm basically, like right here all the time.
Bobby, what I have here is I'm going to go down the comments. We've got several hundred people that have joined us and people that are making comments here. Sabian is listening, so that means all the heads of Sabian are here. Thanks so much, guys, for listening.
Thank you.
John Gill is here, who's a phenomenal teacher up in your area also, who joins us here. My gosh, we've got people from Fernando Sorkin is here from Mexico. We've got Martin Roser, who's from Slovenia, who's doing a masterclass with Klaus Hesser coming soon. I mentioned Catherine Wall, Peter McNally. This is so great to see everybody that's coming by here too. But I've got a couple of people here. I want to bring on a question here. So I'm gonna pull up here. This is one from let's go to here. Okay. Let's start here. Janine Fox, who is a phenomenal student of the art form, and she organizes an incredible interviewing platform that's on Instagram called O for Drum's Sake. So first of all, I ask all of you, just go to Instagram, click on O for Drum's Sake, sign on and follow her, because she gets great interviews. She's got a great spirit, and she's got herself, and her story that she has is so inspiring too. She says here, from the Big O here, SB weekend, Super Bowl weekend. It's the fourth quarter, fourth and first down by 3, one section, one left, no timeouts. Do you play it safe? Do you kick for the field goal and tie, or for overtime, or risk it all for the win? How would you own the now? So what she's asking, Bobby, is that point of understanding that you've got a decision to make. You're on stage. Risk or play it safe. And how do you own that moment? Janine, she is always so deep.
I love Janine, and Janine is a sweetheart, and you know, we actually grew up in the same area, and she lives in the town where I grew up. So she's wonderful. She's always got the best questions, and I think she probably already knows the answer to this. I risk. I jump in, man. I don't dip my toe. I go all in, probably sometimes to a fault, but I'll figure it out after. I'm a shoot first and ask questions later kind of guy. And I don't know much about football, but I know a heck of a lot about meatballs. So, you know, we could talk about that. That's a whole different story, and we wouldn't play it safe that way either. Lots of garlic.
Janine, thank you so much, man. She's such a wonderful person. We've got Victoria from Kiev. We've got Artemy Kor and his wonderful wife, Dasha. They are from Moscow. We've got so many different people here. And well, I got one over here. Let's try this one here. Kevin Lehman, who I've had before to interview here, is a phenomenal player and teacher and the president of the Percussive Arts Society in Colorado. Bobby, you're such a vibrant, high-energy person. It's been a lot of fun interacting with you over Facebook. Can't wait to finally meet you in person soon, I hope. Totally agree on the perpetual student thing. Who have you been studying with recently, and what have you been working on? Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you for the question. In terms of energy, you know, I love living, and I love drums. This is my passion. And for over 30-something years, I've dedicated everything I have to these drums. I mean, they really are like my number one thing. And because of that, why wouldn't I be excited? You have to be excited to play this instrument. You have to take charge. You have to jump all in. I can't stand watching a drummer who's too like nonchalant and doesn't care. Yeah. You got to care. This is a high energy instrument. Even if you're playing delicately, you can play with high energy and delicate. In terms of who I've been studying, well, for starters, I study with Mr. Dom Famularo quite regularly. Carl Allen is another one of my teachers, great jazz drummer. And I recently just started studying with David Garibaldi, and that's been, you know, unbelievable. You know, just kind of, again, helping me to think a different way that maybe I was on the cusp of, but just needed that little push. Or maybe I wasn't even knowing, and it just, you know, showed me something. And now I'm like, whoa, now I'm all in. You know, back to Janine's question, I'm all in. You know, I'm a go big kind of person. And sometimes my wife might say, you know, maybe you should slow down. Everybody, actually, my whole life, Dom, sometimes you tell me, you got to slow down. I can't slow down. You know, you only have maybe 100 years to live. Why am I going to slow down? You know, you know, I got a lot to do.
And you do that. I think the key thing is for all of us to stay focused on what we're doing. Mm-hmm. That we don't waste any of this energy, but you are always like that. And it's so great in our sessions that we do together, you know, and the topics will vary on what we're working on, whether it's techniques and drumming styles and teaching points of view from educational standpoints, mm-hmm. you know, personal, you know, evolvement, business concepts. I mean, we try and hit the whole scope of what we do. But you know, you said with Carl Allen. So what are you working on with Carl Allen?
So, you know, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I haven't seen Carl in about a year now, because the last time I saw him was right before the pandemic. But with Carl, you know, a lot of deeper concepts in terms of the color of music, not just the notes, the interpretation, listening. One of my 2021 goals is to become a better listener across the board. That word, across the board. A better listener to records, a better listener to my wife and my daughter, a better listener to my students, a better listener to myself, a better listener to the sound of the cymbal. Just open up these ears, and something that's a little sometimes hard for me to do, kind of zip it over here a little bit. But, I talk with my hand. Maybe I can figure out, So that's the kind of stuff I've done with Carl. And he's just a beautiful man and a great spirit. And just learn, to me, when I work with Carl, I feel like that's a gateway into the world of Art Blakey and Elvin Jones. And Carl was there with those guys. So I feel like I'm sort of like a little bit there because of that,
And you are, I believe in that, when you study with someone, you're actually, pulling in the heritage of how they learned.
Right.
And you're taking in that inspiration from people that we've never met, but we've experienced. When I studying with Morello, I never met George Lawrence Stone, but I really feel like I know the guy because of what I learned from Morello. What I learned from Chapin, Moeller. I really feel that I kind of understand a lot how Moeller lived his life and what he did because of learning it from Jim. Shelley Mann and his stories about Billy Gladstone. So it is just that. So the continuation of lessons is so important. But I know you just took some lessons, a master classes, a private lesson with David Garibaldi. What was that like?
Well, I mean, so, when I get off here, I have to, start doing his work because he challenged me to come up with some ideas that he wants me to teach him at our next session. What? But I get it because he wants me to be able to dig deeper and then be able to explain what I just dug up. Yeah. And so it's more conceptual, and that's a little bit of a new area for me with the conceptual thinking of drums, because a lot of times it's the foundational stuff, which is really important. And if the concept is the roof and you're putting the roof on, then your foundation needs to be like 100% there, because then you can't even begin to talk about materials for the roof yet if your foundation is not right. So it kind of makes me feel that, I'm just still evolving. And again, that's taking a risk. I'll put this out there. I just do it, whether I should or not. I just found a way to get in contact with David Garibaldi. I found a way to get in contact with you. I found a way to get in contact with Carl Allen. And I made it happen. And that's the difference. Some people will talk about it or want to do it, but they're dipping their toe in the water. You got to jump in. And if you drown, you'll figure it out. If you don't drown, then that's cool. You got, you had a nice swim.
Well, it's for sure you are doing that with these great masters. I mean, it really is fantastic, and I think that continuing education is such an important part of the process. I always say if you want to keep yourself inspired and keep yourself young with the instrument and keep learning, when that new idea comes in, you got to go work on that. Listen, I'm back here on my kit here. Sometimes in the wee small hours of the morning, as Sinatra said, and I'm figuring stuff out here that's really kind of interesting for me to continue to push myself. So I feel like I have grown as an individual, and then that's what you can carry on to your students.
Yes, absolutely.
Such an important part. So you got your drums back there. Now we've recently talked about open-handed playing,
right?
And it seems like you've really kind of embraced this to get into it.
Yeah.
So just talk about making that change now, and the fact that you're home during this pandemic. This is the time to work it out, and figure it out, and experiment with it, and push yourself. Talk about that for a second.
Well, at first I was closed-minded on the idea, probably like many people. I'm going to be traditional and this and that, and that's fine. You play the way you want to play, but it also may speak a little bit to your character of, I want to embrace a worldly view of things. I want to be able to take my message of drumming and positivity to beyond tradition. In order to do that, I have to push myself in ways that will show people that I'm willing to take the chance. And if I'm asking you to take a chance, let me show you that I am too. So I just said, let me try it. Let's open it up, and it made sense. This is my right hand is my dominant hand, so let's see what I can come up with. And it allowed me to bust out some extra hi-hats and extra rides and just explore. And all of a sudden, I'm coming up with patterns that maybe I was playing before traditionally, but because I have different sound sources over here, they sound a little different. So now I'm hearing new things. Back to listening, right? So now I'm listening for new things and figuring out how I can develop those more. And I just like the idea of being open. I have nothing to hide. I don't want my playing to sound like I have anything to hide. If I play left-handed and it doesn't sound as good as this way, I don't care. I'm still trying it because I want everybody to see my tattoos. But no, it's been good, and it's been a creative. It's a creative outlet and a new way for me to do things, so that I'm not just stuck doing the same old all the time.
Yeah. Boy, very, very good. Boy, it's a good thing your tattoos are on your inner arms and not on your inner thighs. We'd all be in trouble at that point, all right?
Not yet, anyways, but
Now, you have been playing Sabian for many, many years. And, as we come across and we have this incredible opportunity from Sabian to allow us to reach hundreds of people. And as this goes on to Facebook and YouTube, hundreds of more and thousands of views will happen from this year too. So talk about your cymbals, the different cymbals that you have and what you like about Sabian.
I'm so glad you asked. I have a ton of Sabian cymbals. I've just acquired them over about the last 30 years. And, there's a lot of reasons why I love the Sabian cymbals. First, they're a family business, and I grew up in a family-run business. So I know the dynamics of a family-run business. And one day I hope to make it up to the factory in Canada and use one of their ovens that they make the cymbals and make a pizza pie in there and see if it works. I'm just dying to see if it works, because I always tell people making cymbals is sort of like making pizza. It's just you're using metal instead of dough. My father always used to tell me that the dough is in the dough. So there you go. But
up at the Sabian factory, they call them pies. Put the pies in the oven. It really is funny, yeah.
I'll bring the pepperoni, and they got the alloy, and we're good to go. So, but I have a ton of cymbals here. HHX Evolutions. I have a couple of cymbals that were from their cymbal vote thing that they did a few years ago that they never went to market, but they were still at the store. So I was like, I'm taking these, and they are some of my favorite cymbals. Yeah. I recently acquired a 21-inch Holy China, which is amazing because it's got the bark and the bite, but then I could also ride on it and kind of get that Mel Lewis kind of thing going, where it's not too dense. It's just got like a little whisper underneath, but the bark is there as well. My latest acquisition is an AAX Thin Crash, which I actually won from Jim Toscano. I joined one of their his master classes, and they raffled off a cymbal, and I won. So I just got that into the mix. A couple of sets of hi-hats, and last week there was a Sabian event. They were live at the factory, and Mark Love and Chris Stanky were doing a demonstration, and Chris Stanky mentioned that he can't give away 16 inches and 13-inch cymbals anymore. But my favorite hi-hats to this day are my 13-inch HHX Evolutions. They do it for me. And then I really kind of wanted to show a cymbal that I use a lot. This is a cymbal vote Aero Crash 20-inch. It's a crash, but I use this on my main gig, as a ride and a crash. So if I'm playing a small place, I can do everything with this cymbal. I can ride up here on the unladed bell part, and then it opens up nice and it's full. It's just a great cymbal. And one last one that's really dear to my heart is this 21-inch AA medium heavy ride. This cymbal I've had for about 30 years now. It was the first cymbal that I bought when I worked at my family's restaurant, worked the whole summer, bought this white drum set behind me and the first set of cymbals, and it was this Sabian medium heavy ride. And it's dear to my heart because I've recorded almost every, recording with this cymbal. It's very similar to, they used to make an Ed Shaughnessy signature ride. It's very much like that kind of a cymbal. And I love this thing. It was actually stolen from me once, and I got it back. So this thing is meant to be with me.
That's the thing, though. Don't steal anything from an Italian.
I'm going to get it back, believe me.
That's best. So you have all these cymbals, and I'm sure different gigs that you're playing, you're going to bring different cymbals for the setup and what you have.
Yeah, definitely. And, so on my kit here, I have the Legacy 15-inch HHX Legacy hi-hats, 19-inch Legacy crash, and a 22 heavy ride. So that's like my core, basic setup. And then everything else is just bells and whistles for flavor, or as I like to say, a little garlic, a little oregano, mix it up. Olive oil. Don't forget the olive oil. You gotta bring the grease.
So you have a left hi-hat and a right hi-hat?
Oh yeah. Well, I got 3 hi-hats. So I got on my left side is the 15-inch Legacy, and on the right side is 15-inch Evolutions, which are the big brothers to my 13-inch favorites. And then recently what I did, and I wish I could get it in the shot here, is on one side of my kit, I created sort of like a high-pitched hybrid kit, and I took 2 8-inch splashes. One is the AAX Aero Splash, and then the Neil Paragon 8-inch splash, and I made hi-hats out of them. And in order to get it to work, I had to use my daughter's, she's 6 years old. I bought her one of those little, sort of toy drum sets. I stole her hi-hat stand for it, and it works beautifully. And they sound great. And the cool thing is I can still use it as an 8-inch splash when it's open, but then when I step on the pedal, it gets real tight, sort of crisp, unique sound. And that goes back to the whole exploring thing, trying new sounds, trying new things.
Well, that's fantastic. So you have, and your ride cymbals, what do you have with your ride cymbals? How do you have them laid out?
Okay, so you can't see it here, but up to my left is a HHX 21-inch cymbal vote. It's a smoky ride. So it's really jazzy, good stick articulation, and light. And on top of that, I have stacked on top of it a 10-inch ozone splash. Then underneath that is a 19-inch tremor, cymbal vote tremor, which works nicely as a ride. It's unladed on the top and laded on the bottom. Really nice. And has this nice warble to it. So I can crash and ride on it. I like crash, the cymbals that I can do both, crash and ride. The 19-inch is a crash, but it's a nice ride too. It's all like how you play it. You can make a crash cymbal be a ride if you play right. Then I got the 22-inch Legacy heavy, and then I have an 18-inch Omni. So that's unladed in the middle and laded towards the end. So that kind of doubles up. And then over here I have an 18-inch ozone stacked on top of a Sabian. I don't know what that cymbal is. I found it, used. It just has a Sabian stamp on it. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I have it stacked on there. So I can be keeping time anywhere.
Yeah. Boy, that's fantastic. We have this here. You mentioned it before. This is from Sabian's as they watch this here.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched the SEN Live from the Vault last Friday, it's available inside www.sabianed.com.
Yeah, that was great. And hearing, Mark Love's story there and how long he's been with the company and just how he came into it. That's such a cool story. That's again history. This instrument, the history is not just in the players and in the music. It's the industry, it's the manufacturers, it's the people behind that work at the factories, and that guy cares about what he's producing. That isn't that what we all want? To care about what we put out there.
With Mark Love, it is great honor and dedication and integrity in each cymbal that is manufactured. This is not like a cookie cutter production, process here. This is a real specific, customized process for each sound that goes out, and that was always, just the dedication that Sabian had. And Andy, the president of Andy, is just that same way. He carries on what his dad Bob had continued on, and that legacy of just dedication to make high quality product is still as vibrant today as it was from people like Mark Love and people like Christian Stanke. Christian Stanke, our artist relations manager. Christian knows the product so well because he's got to work with every artist and find out what sound they want and what feel they want. And he really kind of steps into the world, as Christian worked very closely for all of the time that Neil was in need of development of Paragon, and Christian was there close at Neil's side to develop the product and to guide Neil along the way on what they played, and they became very, very close friends. And it was just wonderful to see the relationship that Christian had and the respect he had for the great Neil Peart.
That's what it is right there, though, Dom. It's relationship, right? We are in the relationship building business. We're building relationships with our students. We're building relationships with our teachers. We're building relationships with our fans. We're building relationships with the products that we use. And, that's the skill. If I had to offer a fourth skill besides rudiments, reading, and styles, get your relationship stuff together. Learn how to be a person that people want to have a relationship with, and that goes a long way.
We talk about that a lot. That really is a big part of the journey of what we have here too. This is from Joe Bergamini. Bobby, great to have you here. Thanks everyone for your continued support. And tomorrow is week 4 of the finale course. It's going well, and they plan to have more clinics on it. So I tell everybody, I want you to go there and check this out. Okay, tomorrow, is week 4. Tomorrow at 2:00, I believe. Listen, the bottom line is, finale is an important tool to have, and Joe, understands it so well, and he's got, just great people to assist him in what's happening with this. Willie, who is another finale specialist, works with Joe. Here's the key thing. Finale is important now because as an educator, you need to understand finale to be able to lock down your ideas and share this with people and show it to them in a professional way.
Right.
I tell everyone that's listening to hop on this course with Joe and learn finale. Don't be afraid of it. Step into it and have a basic understanding of it and get that process down, because it's only going to help you out tremendously as you go along the way. I've got a question here I want to go by to. I want to find out where he was. I just had him here. Rick Stojak. Here he is. Here it is. Rick Stojak, who is a phenomenal drummer out in the West Coast. Rick Stojak, and also does interviews, and he recently interviewed Gene Hoglan, who is a phenomenal drummer, that's with the band Testament, who's still out there playing and doing it. And I had a chance of working with Gene for many, many years. But Rick is a phenomenal educator, player, and he has several books out on his own. He said, great interview, Bobby. Can you please tell us about your teaching curriculum and how you keep students motivated?
Sure.
Thank you. From sunny San Diego.
Thank you for the question. Again, I'm all about the foundational type stuff. I want to make sure that most of my students are younger, kids in high school or below. I have a couple of older ones, but most of them are younger kids, and they sort of look to me as like a big brother. And that's my approach. That's how I keep them motivated. I am the oldest child in a group of 3, so I know what it's like to be the big brother. And that's how I treat all my students, even if they're older than me. Like, I'm your big brother. I'm going to help you. I'm going to make sure you don't have the pitfalls that maybe I went through, but maybe some pitfalls you need to have because that's part of the process. In terms of what I'm teaching them, rudiments, reading, the coordination they need, introducing them to the key styles that they're going to need to know. I kind of want to prep them to be able to go to, let's say, an open mic and be able to feel comfortable to sit in. I would say that what I really teach is not as much drumming as it is confidence and how to be a nice human being using the drums as the platform.
Listen, that's very, very powerful. It's something which I want them to understand. Let's do one more quick question before we go. from Michael Scott. Michael's a phenomenal player and teacher. Also recently took some lessons with Garibaldi and Todd Zuckerman and all these phenomenal great. Mike has taken some lessons with me. As a drummer, what have been some of your biggest challenges and how did you overcome these hurdles? Great question, Michael. Thank you.
Really good question. It's a roller coaster ride, as anybody who's been doing it a long time will attest to. One of the hardest things that happened to me once was being in a band that was signed to a major label and doing sort of like my first major tour. And this is when records were still being put out in stores and stuff, and walking into a Walmart and seeing my record and my face on, in the store, that was like amazing. And hearing it on the regular radio for the first time was amazing. And then a few months later, I'm flipping pizzas again, that it all came down, and, highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. So the biggest struggle for me is staying committed. Well, actually, it's not a struggle to stay committed. I should be committed. That's how committed I am to this stuff. And, but it's just keeping my energy level up when things are down. Like 2020 was a good example. I really didn't get down in 2020. I thrived, but that was a choice. So it's just choosing to keep up and keep myself up and not falling into the pitfalls that are so easy for anybody to fall into, because they're just big holes. When you're walking on a path, you're gonna run into a big hole or a big boulder that you're gonna have to figure out how to move around. Mm-hmm. If you just try to bang your head against the darn boulder that's in front of you, you're not doing anybody any good.
Boy, Bobby, great advice. It's been great to have this time with you, because it really kind of opens up ideas for everyone who are all these great educators that are out there listening. We've had people from all around the world. I mean, Murray Piper has joined us here from Maryland. It's just so great. All the different people. Tim Conley from up in Canada. Bruno Muse is from Antwerp, Belgium. Maxim Diomin is from the Ukraine. People from Russia. It's just so amazing to experience this world that we have of people that are interested. I mentioned Martin Roser from Slovenia. These people are tuning in because they are a team that wants to continue learning. We have such a great group of people that I am blessed to have taught many of them in the course of the project. So it's really kind of a blessing to me in the journey, as it is having my time with you. You've done fantastic. Thank you so much. From Bobby A to the world, man, we've had a chance to kind of go out there and touch base, and you hit some great points.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Sabian, and everybody that's watching, because, this is a truly unique group. This, Sabian Education Network, and the group, you start seeing the same names all the time. I've made some great friends from this platform that I haven't met in person yet. So it's just a testament to, what we're doing here. So it's really good stuff. And thank everybody for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, fantastic. Well, Bobby, I want you to go back and check out the comments later on, both that are on Facebook and YouTube, and check them out. You can answer them, respond to them all, because they'd love to hear from you. I thank everybody at Sabian for coming by and allowing us to have this vehicle of time, the Sabian Education Program. Go to sabianed.com. There's some great videos there of the vault and different things. Joe Bergamini is hosting, session 4 of finale. But even if you want to come in for session 4, he'll review and update you, so it'll be like session 1. Go in there and just open your mind and just do it. There's great opportunity here. The worst that can happen is we're all going to grow from this. That's the worst that can happen. The best that can happen is we're going to grow a lot. Yeah. That's how we're trying to push this art form, and Sabian Education Network is a part of the process. Bobby, thank you so much. Stay safe. I look forward to seeing you in person. Wear your mask, wash your hands, distance yourself from people so nobody gets ill with this insane pandemic that we're in. And I look forward for all of us getting together, whether it's at the NAMM show or whether it's at the Percussive Arts Society or any Sabian event that they want to do. Let's make it happen, and let's have a safe 2021.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bobby. Stay well.